from Jelly Bean Pottery, and I'm here today to walk you through how I roll out a slab. Now, this may seem like not the most exciting topic, but for many potters, especially those who work in a home studio who might not have access to all of the different equipment that you might have in a community studio, like a slab roller, this can be very helpful. Like, how do you do it? How do you get consistent slab thickness? And I am in such a situation myself, where I have a home studio, as you can see, no slab roller in sight. So this is maybe a weird angle of the video, but hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing as I'm going along. So first I want to walk you through what tools that I use. So the first is to have some, for me anyways, is to have some canvas. And I like canvas because I can pick it up and move it if I have to. I can easily wash it. And this is the canvas I just got. And you can get it in, fabric store, any craft store. Heck, even Walmart has it. This is actually a duck cloth that I bought. You can get it in any yardage, which is really great. This is a smaller piece only because it fits the bulk of the slabs that I roll out. But I do have larger pieces for larger work that fill more of my table. The other thing I would recommend, you can kind of see here in this corner, is I mark them. I use different colored clays, some red, some white, and I mark my canvas. So even though I wash this canvas periodically, I first do it in just clean water, and then I, wash it, and but I do mark them red clay and white clay, and I do that because I don't want to. I also have, I think, a low fire clay one as well. I don't want to mix my clays, even though I wash them periodically. This way I can keep it as clean as possible. The next thing that's super important is to have wooden guides. So you can see here, they're already set down on the table. You can get these at any home improvement store. I think I got these at Home Depot, but Lowe's has them. I'm sure Ace Hardware, all of those places. And this is just the pre-cut size. You can see it's rather long, which I never cut down because sometimes I roll longer slabs. So it's good to have that extra flexibility that you're not going to run out of wood guides. These are 1/4 of an inch thick, as you can see here. I do have some that I've modified. I have another set that I keep modified. And you could say added some paint stirrers. The paint stirrers are 1/8 of an inch thick, so this is actually a 3/8 of an inch thick slab. And I use this one for when I'm rolling slabs for larger forms that need a little bit more support than my 1/4 of an inch thickness. So I have these, but certainly you could put this one and this one together for 1/2 inch. That's not typically a size I use, but it's an option. Another way that I control thickness of my slab, and this is really for those who are new to pottery, thickness, even consistency of wall thickness is so critical to so many forms, whether it's slab rolling, wheel throwing, pinch pots, coils, etc., because it helps for uniform drying and prevents cracking. So that's why I'm going through all of this and showing it to you. So take a breath. So the other option you have in this I use too, mostly for mugs because it's a smaller rolling pin that I can use them on. These are for baking. And I bought this set on Amazon, and they're called Even Dough, I believe, and they'll be linked in the links below the video on my blog. But these are the exact bands I ordered from Amazon. They come in different sizes. This one is the 1/4 of an inch thickness. You can see, it fits on there quite sturdily. It's made of rubber. I do find that they have some give, so it's probably a little bit thinner than a 1/4 of an inch, which for me works perfectly because I don't really want a 1/4 of an inch thick wall for my mugs. They do come in a whole set of various sizes, so you can change them depending on what kind of project you're using. Some are very thin. This is the thickest one. So I really like these. As I said, I use them mostly for mugs. Today, though, I'm going to be rolling a bigger slab, so I'm going to be using these guides and this rolling pin, which I also bought on Amazon, that I absolutely adore and love. And I adore and love this because it's so long. I don't know if you can see it. versus your standard size rolling pin. You can see this is probably about 12 inches. This is so much longer than the standard rolling pin, and I love it because that means I can roll a nice wide slab. It fits across both of my guides. I don't have to worry about, you know, any issues with the slab not being evenly consistent. So I don't like the fact that it doesn't have handles, but I love the length, and this is my go-to rolling pin. I use this one mostly for mugs when I'm doing small, less wide slabs. So this one is super great. The one thing you want to be careful about when you're buying one of these rolling pins online is that it is that consistent thickness. A lot of pastry rolling pins are thicker here and thinner at the edges, and obviously you don't want that. Okay, so just putting stuff away. So I'm going to roll out my slab, and there'll probably be a weird angle of me, but sorry about that. I find that rolling slabs work best when I am standing. So I always stand at my table when I'm doing slabs, and I don't sit down. I find that I'm more able to control the slabs, and I have more force of movement. So I'm going to start with my clay, and I just have cut some off, my block of clay. So this is just from a fresh bag. And I'm going to put it down, and the first thing I'm going to do is loosen it up a little bit. So I'm going to push it out, and this does two things. One, it loosens the clay up a little bit from where it was in its block. And then the second thing that it does is it starts to get me the width. So when I'm rolling this way and this way. And unless I turn my clay, I'm really only expanding in one direction. So I want to get my width set first. So this helps me get some of my width. Now the biggest key to rolling a slab by hand is to flip the slab often. And this is where your canvas can come really in handy. So first I've done that. You can see I've already got a wet mark on my canvas, and that's the kiss of death. And the reason, this is exactly why we flip the slab. So I've already done this. I now need to flip my slab, because if I don't, that wet mark will just kind of like stick to the canvas and not go anywhere and not expand. So I flipped it. I'm going to be rolling to increase my width a little bit. I'm going to be cutting out one of my templates. For my planters, I use all of these different, they're a heavy, actually watercolor paper, watercolor people that I use, but they're nice and firm. You can also, some really great waterproof things are to buy a roll of tar paper or other roofing paper. I have some somewhere. I don't know exactly where, and I have a ton of templates in those too. But I really like things that can get wet and will stay sturdy. For a long time I used newspaper and like brown paper bag, and my templates got really worn and tattered, so I've recut them in this, and you can see I have it labeled. You know, here's the end result. I have marks on it. This is like, whoops, sorry. This is the standard height, and these are my guides to make it taller. I'll actually do a taller one to show you guys how I do that. So when I do my width, I want this width plus my expansion for the taller. So I'll have this ready nearby so I know. So when I flip my slab, I'm gonna roll, and you can roll and put as much force as you want because you can't go thinner than the guides of wood. So I'm just gonna do that. And I'm just pushing, and you'll see I'm making small movements. Okay, so I'm gonna check my width. And I have plenty of width, so that's perfect. So I'm gonna now again flip my slab. And in this instance, I'm gonna flip to the side because this is now my width, and so now I'm gonna work on expanding this way. And I want this length here. Hopefully we don't get it with this piece of clay, because if we don't, I can show you how to fix it. So the one thing you'll notice is, when do you flip, right? I tend to flip once I get all the way to the end, back and forth to the end, and then I flip, which might seem excessive, but I do it because once I've flipped it, what I'm doing is I'm releasing that seal with the wet part of the canvas. Now, if you're doing a much larger piece of clay, a larger slab, where the canvas can really help you, is you can pick it up with the canvas, flip it onto another piece of canvas, and then keep going. And you can use the canvas as a sling. This is a small enough piece of clay that I can flip it without too much damage, so that's okay. Now, how do you know when you're done? You'll know you're done when nothing moves. So you can see here, like, the slab isn't really getting any bigger. Okay, so it's time to measure, and as you can see, I have much more room to go. So I'm going to check my width. Okay, so if I check my width, I'm going to need to go to here. I'm going to make a mark. And then I'm going to take, and I'm going to cut here. And I'm cutting here because before this point, I actually didn't have the full width, right? Not comfortably. And I'm going to use that mark to cut this clay. I'm going to use that mark to cut that clay. Okay. And then there's no reason to start again. We're just going to put these slabs down here at the front, the top, the front, the top. And I'm going to smooth them in. I always smooth like one section, and I always do it all at one end. I don't know why. Partially because I find, for me personally, all of these things are tips that work for me personally. They're things I've learned from other people and picked up along the way. What I find is that you want to, really learn from so many different clay artists, and then pick and choose the techniques that work best for you, right? What's easy for me might not be easy for you, and vice versa. And so if you find something that works better for you, that's absolutely what you should go for. So this works for me. I do it this way all the time. And I've added that on. And now before I flip, I'm going to take my rolling pin, and I'm going to, again, go over this. Okay, and just roll that part. Now you'll see I have this gap here that happens sometimes. Fix that. And I have some gaps here, and we know that this is the width I need. Okay. It doesn't matter if I have the length I need. If I don't have the width, I need both, right? Okay, so now the next thing too, you want to be really careful picking this up because this is a delicate attachment. We've only really compressed the one side. So when you pick it up, you'll see I have all of these parts where I haven't, I kind of compressed on the one side, but not on this side. So when I pick it up, I want to be really careful. You'll see I have a wide hand under that whole part, and I'm really careful picking it up. You could even, pick it up a little bit more carefully than I just did, but you really want to prevent this part from tearing. Now the next thing I'm going to do before I roll is to compress this side. I like to use a plastic scraper. I got this at the dollar store. Okay, and I love these things. I have a whole set of them, different sizes, and you could use a flexible rubber rib as well, but I personally love this plastic scraper. So I'm just going to go through, and I'm going to compress. So anytime we've stretched and attached, we need to compress. And I haven't compressed compressed this whole slab yet, even though we have stretched it out. But I need to at least right now compress this area because that's my attachment. Okay, so now I've done that. Now I'm gonna work on, let's check, yep, plenty of room. Now I'm gonna work on fixing this. Now the other reason I flipped and I rolled this out first is when I go this way now, I'm gonna be, this slab is already the right thickness, and this is where I'm evening out from like here down. So when I roll this way, if I hadn't previously flattened this, it would buckle this side. So you want to prevent that as much as possible. You'll notice it didn't do that, or it did it a little bit. If you review the video, I had a little bit of that. And now I can be a little bit less cautious in picking this slab up as I compressed both sides, once with the smooth in, my fingers in the roll. And you'll see there, I'm pretty good. Now, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna compress the entire slab. And I'm gonna be firm about it. And I'm gonna go over it a few times on each side. And what this does is we've just stretched this clay, right? We've rolled it and rolled it, and we've stretched it so it's like, and now we have to recompress the molecules, and it's almost like they're there, it's okay, this is your new form. If you don't compress, you can cause cracking and more brittleness in the clay, so it's a really important step. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to cut this out. And this, because I'm going to be using my marks to go taller, I'm just going to cut 3 sides. And this is just one way I use a template. And then now that I've got this, I have my marks here. This is my original mark, but was kind of too tall. This is my new mark where the arrow is. So I'm going to match that up on both sides. I'm not going to eyeball it. I have a mark on either side that I've pre-measured many, many moons ago. And I'm going to extend that line, and then I'm going to do that top. And so you can see there, perfect slab. Now the one thing I don't have is enough clay for my bottom. This is a planter slab, so I need enough clay for my bottom. And this is the one thing that, you know, is kind of nice. I don't have to re-wedge or anything like that. I just need to, I don't need this clay. I do re-wedge if I'm doing that for another slab. But I can go through, and this is a smaller slab, so I'm going to more easily flip it over to get this on both sides. It doesn't have to be pretty because I'm going to roll it out again. And again, I'm going to use these wooden posts as my guide, because the whole point of using them is to get consistent slab thickness, right? Consistent wall thickness, regardless of method. Coils, wheel throwing, slabs, pinch is what prevents cracking. So why is that a prevention of cracking? So when clay dries, obviously a thinner section of clay is going to dry more quickly than a thicker section of clay. And so if everything is as consistent as possible in thickness, it's going to dry evenly. And then therefore less cracking. So if a thinner part dries faster, clay shrinks as it dries. That thinner part is going to pull in. It's going to pull in. I'm making these motions that you can't even see because I'm not on camera. It's going to pull in, and it's going to pull away from the thicker parts of the clay. So that's where you want to be careful. Okay. So I have this. This is perfect. And we're just going to turn this into a pattern. And I'm just going to show you a little bit of how I start. Some of my patterns are incredibly time consuming and boring. to do, so I won't show you the whole thing because you'll turn off the video. But I make a lot of my own stamps, and you can see some here. Oops. And I also use a lot of found objects. Maybe I'll use this, and I can do the whole slab for you folks. Okay, so I'm going to use this. This is my bottle cap that I found smushed in a parking lot. It came this way. This is one of my roller stamps. So I'm just going to do a pattern, and I'm making this up as I go, pushing this in, pulling it out, pushing it in, if only I could speed up this part. If I knew enough about video making to speed this part up for you folks, I would. The hardest part that I have in doing this is not getting the marks of my fingers everywhere when I'm lifting this tool. And I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to alternate between my bottle cap, or what I consider my paramecium tool, and my bamboo tool. Do something fun. A lot of times when I'm making patterns, especially ones that aren't consistent, I try to think of like what's going to look interesting going around the pot. And this is probably maybe not the best pattern to display that. I'll have to do a video where I'm building a pattern that is more one of a kind, unique. One day I'm going to create a handle for this tool that'll let me pick it up without leaving finger marks. I try really hard not to leave finger marks, but inevitably it happens. Perfect. That never happens where it's a perfect thing. So there you go, textured slab, and this will be turned into a planner. Hopefully you guys have some great tools now for rolling the slab out, compressing it, and getting ready and setting it up for a project. Till next time, see you guys later.